What's going on, everybody? Chris here, hanging out once again with some of our influencers. And tonight, we're doubling up. We're doing Mark chapter 11 and 12. We're going to see how good we are and how skilled we are doubling up this week, see how that went and what questions we have. Which brings me to the question I always ask. What questions do you have? What stood out?
I think verse 11 is funny. It says, he went to Jerusalem and into the temple, and after looking around at everything, since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. It's like he decided that night, all right, tomorrow I'm going to come back here and trash the place.
which also proves this was premeditated.
Yes.
He's like, yep, that's what I thought. It's bad. I'll be back.
I do think it's important before the tree that we recognize what happened before the story of the tree.
He came into Jerusalem?
And what did that mean? What were the people hoping would happen?
They were hoping that he would like basically kick out the Romans, right?
Yeah. That he would come as king. It's important as we talk through these next stories that we're remembering that he knows they have expectations, but he also has to change their mind. That he's not going to do it the way that they thought.
Because they celebrated the entry of a new king to overthrow Rome, just like you said, Em. But that isn't exactly how Jesus is going to play it out, because they envision he gathers an army and literally physically overthrows Rome. But Jesus has his sights on something bigger, even death itself he's going to overthrow, which is what Rome was founded on. Was follow us, do what we say, or we'll kill you. So they're expecting Jesus to do that. And then we get to a fig tree and a temple. What's the first thing he overthrows?
The way things were, the temple.
The Jews are expecting him to come in and overthrow Rome, and he actually calls out the Jews. It's not what they expected. What is he mad about with the temple?
He's mad because these people have, instead of making it a place of worship, they've turned it into a place of thieves, is how he had phrased it.
And you can imagine that that's like missing the point of what it's supposed to be. Just like if there was a tree that's supposed to produce fruit and just doesn't, then should it still exist? That's what he's pointing out. You have a fruit tree, it's supposed to do this. We have a temple, it's supposed to be this. Mm-hmm. And if it's not doing that.
So he's with the disciples. He already knows what he's going to go into the temple to do. And if he told them he was going to do that, what would they probably do?
They probably would have stopped him.
Yeah, hey, Jesus, that may not be a good idea. So on the way, he just happens to see a tree. And what does he do? He touches the tree. The disciples see what happens. He goes into the temple, does what he does there. They come back. They see that the tree is withered. So if we go back to, they expect he's to be king, he's already trying to reframe the way that they think. So what is he showing that he really has power over?
The temple? Is that what he...
Well, it goes even deeper than that. What did he do to the tree? What did he take from it?
The life source, I guess.
Yeah, so he's trying to paint the picture that I have the power over life and death. All the politics, all the things that you're worried about, we need to start rethinking about. He needs them to be ready and know the power that they're dealing with. And that's why it says, when he talks to them, it's like, hey, look, it withered. And he says, yep, have faith. If you ask something in my name, it's going to happen. Because he wants them to remember the tree. He wants them to remember breaking the bread, the loaves and the fishes. He wants them to remember the healings and all that, because it's going to be some pretty scary stuff coming up.
So the symbols are always something like a tangible thing you can come back to, whether it's a miracle or like sharing a meal together. Any of those things help us remember and to hold on and to have faith. So it's just like in our own lives, when we've had this moment of like, man, God was really present there. When we have moments when we're not so sure, we can call back to that and remember. And that's really what communion's always supposed to be. is do this in remembrance of me. Like it's a callback that God is with us and that God has gone first and offered life to everyone. And that's kind of what all this is. And then it just keeps going in 12 to like keeps playing on that, like, so you think it's this way, but it's this way. So you think it's this way, but it's this way. And like pointing out all those things along the way. What else in 12 stood out to you? You got taxes. Who should pay taxes? Marriage and the resurrection. Whose husband or wife are you when you come back to life, when you're resurrected?
So in marriage and the resurrection, is Jesus like hinting at what heaven's going to be like? Specifically where he says, is that where you're going wrong is that you don't know the scripture or God's power. When people rise from the dead, they don't marry, nor do people give them in marriage. They are like angels in heaven.
I think what Jesus is doing is just continuing to reframe people. They're like, well, who am I married to? And he's like, you won't, like, this is not how that works. Like, it's not that it won't be important.
Also, just so you guys know, because again, this is one of these things that the writers assume people know because it was not written to us, it was written to them. The Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. So you see the Pharisees questioning him about things, trying to get him to agree with the Sadducees. And you see the Sadducees trying to get him, because in our world, this would be like Republican and Democrat or conservative or liberal. They're trying to force him to agree with the other side so they can pigeonhole him and tell everyone why he's wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's helpful to know, when they're asking about the resurrection. And the reason he gets frustrated is because he knows they're not looking for truth. And so, usually with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, you see him twisting their words and turning it back on them and then just walking away.
Like he was saying, they're not asking the question to learn an answer. They're asking a question to put them in a box. Just like what we've talked about before. Like, people might ask you, well, what do you believe? Do you believe this or this? And then based on what you say, all right, you go there, you go there. I either like you or I hate you.
Generally, when people say, are you for this or against this? What they're really saying is, will you accept me? They may not even know that. And so Jesus is even showing his disciples that ultimately what's most important here is life, relationship, love, and doing what's best for people. Don't let them pigeonhole you just to think that they're right. There is a truth. I don't want you to hear me saying that either. There is truth, but truth presented without love or context or reason often becomes hurtful.
They would be presenting truth in their eyes to win an argument, which isn't what truth's goal is necessarily. Real truth.
Yep.
So anytime truth is used to win an argument or prove I'm right and you're wrong, I think that's missing it, actually. It's like let's think. It's like if a tree, like a fig tree, was supposed to grow fruit and it works great.
I do think it's important when you read through this section, the way that it's set up, that starting in verse 41, again, the disciples are with Jesus and they're seeing all these things happening, and then he brings them to something that he wants them to see. Instead of people coming up to him and asking him questions and him reacting to that, he goes through this whole process of leading to the point of where he says, now I want you to see something. And what happens there?
Rich people put in a bunch of money, and then a single poor widow put in 2 tiny coins, which was together with a single penny. And then Jesus talks about how that was like her whole livelihood compared to how the rich people are just like nothing compared to what she did.
And so this is where it's important. As you study scripture, you'll see God reacting to what other people ask of him, but there's times where he'll point out and say, hey, here's what I want you to see. Everyone in that temple probably disregarded her. She had very little to put in. All the other wealthy people are trying to run up the score and saying, look how much I love God. But what they're really saying is, how much appreciation and attention are you going to give me? And Jesus is really saying, this is the person who really believes.
She gave everything she had.
Yeah. And the other people would have never fathomed doing that.
Which calls back to the rich young ruler of go sell everything and then you can follow me. She did, because she didn't have much to sell. And the wealthy people did not.
Now, it's also important you don't look at that literally. I mean, I guess you could, but Jesus may not be calling all of us to sell everything, but he is looking at our heart. And in her heart, she believed so much that God would take care of her. She gave just about, if not everything that she had in trust, whereas everyone else was giving for attention. As you study scripture, always things to be looking for. There's a reason in love that Jesus is doing everything that he does.